America!
G'day everyone. It's been a very long time. In fact, it's been just over 3 years since I felt like I needed to make a video, so I feel the need for a video, and I'll get into it. Stop jabbering. Anyway, here in Australia, as you're probably quite familiar and aware, we had the Royal Commission, which investigated the cases of child abuse and how institutions in Australia dealt with it, or hid it well in the case of the Watchtower Society. But they have set up a national redress scheme, which is to help support these many victims of child abuse across all different institutions in Australia, not just the Watchtower being one of them, but many. Now, the reason for this video was last week I was contacted by a reporter from News Corp, which is one of the large newspaper companies here in Australia, and she was interested in some background on the financial situation of how the Watchtower works in regards to what's coming up with the National Redress Scheme. So I gave her the information that I had gathered, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. But it was 2015 seemed to be the last, or 2016, I should say. Kind of passed it on to others to handle and do with as they wanted. Anyway, that's fallen into her hands, and she contacted me. So kind of sparked my curiosity again to see where we're at, because as she let me know, coming up at the end of the month on the 30th of June is a pivotal date for the redress scheme, which is the date that all the institutions are voluntarily, but they have to, sign up to the redress scheme. And of course, Watchtower Society hasn't signed on to it as yet. The problem I can see there for them is, if they do sign on to it, it's an admission of, we know we have a problem. Our system is problematic, and we've endangered children, and we've had child abuse victims within the organisation. So I don't know. Will they sign it? Probably not. But what happens if they don't sign it? Well, according to the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission, the ACNC, that they will publicly identify any institution as not conforming, and the ACNC has a range of formal penalties and powers that they can enact. But the sign-on date is for the 30th of June. That's to sign on to the program, but the actual program itself will start on the 1st of January 2021, I believe. So this sign-up date is just to say, hey, we're in it, and then there's a 6-month final cut-off that if an institution hasn't signed up to it by then, which I presume that's what the Watchtower will be, probably one of the only ones who won't sign up to it, because when you think about it, how could God's organisation on earth ever admit that they actually were wrong and endangered children by their misapplying principles in their Bible? Right, so what can the ACNC do? Well, publicity, but in Australia, you would have thought, like in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, the Royal Commission was a huge deal because it was good to see the Watchtower Society being called to answer questions that they'd rather just avoid and practices they'd rather just keep quiet. But in the general public, they really didn't count for much, didn't get much publicity at all because they're minnows. They're a tiny percentage of the Australian population, and people really only know them or aware of them just through being annoyed by having them knock on your door, which they can't at the moment through the COVID. Right, so what the ACNC can do is publicly shame them. That's one thing, and just putting a reproach on Jehovah's name. The other one is to change their charitable status. Now, that could be what hurts the most. If they were to have their charity status removed, which, well, it'd take a long time because there'd be appeals to Supreme Courts through to the High Court of Australia. It'd be freedom of religion. It'd be the whole, shipload of works that goes into that. And Jehovah's Witnesses are good for fighting, their freedom of religion and cry that they're oppressed and all of that. They're experienced at it. So that would take some time. But one of the penalties that could happen to them is they could have their charitable status changed within the charities. And here's where I think we might just digress into an explanation for you of how charities work in Australia. So the Australian Charities Commission started pretty much at the end of December in 2011, starting to 2012. They accepted registrations for charities and not-for-profits in Australia. Now, I think, and this is all obviously my opinion only, but I'm just going off what I can get off public records and some information I know from when I was a Jehovah's Witness. So back in December of 2012, just about every congregation in Australia on the 3rd of December put in a registration to form a small charity. Now, definition of the types of charities here in Australia are small, medium and large. And what this is referring to is not so much the size of how many people happen to be in it, it's the revenue, so the financial input into that charity, how much money is coming in. A small charity is anything under $250,000 of revenue. A medium is above $250,000 to under $1 million in revenue, and a large charity operates $1 million plus in revenue. Now, those the small and medium, when it first was when this charity commission set up this scheme, the first small and medium, as far as financial reporting, they don't have to report it. It's a voluntary arrangement, so they can report if they want to, which of course not one Jehovah's Witness charity has reported willingly. No, that's kept quiet. But just through the continuance of their status size, you know roughly what sort of money they're dealing with, and we'll come across that later as we look at the actual larger charities that the Jehovah's Witnesses operate in Australia. Now, the large charities initially were voluntary as well for having to report, and then that has changed that the large, so $1 million plus revenue charities have to report. But the laws changed, and of course every charity in Australia that Jehovah's Witnesses is a part of changed on the 1st of January 2014. They changed their category to advancing religion, and the reason why I can see why that they went from being just a charity, a religious charity, to advancing religion charity was it changed their status to be deemed a basic charity. And the benefit for them of being a basic charity was that it exempted them from answering financial questions. They do not have to submit financial reports, nor do they need to comply with the ACNC governance standards. So by them changing their status, they've gone from having to report to not having to report. Now that's that's not a big deal, but it is in a way. If I was just Joe Blow public and I was donating money to a charity, that I can't find out any information about the charity. Couldn't see where the money went. The person who collected it from me may have said, "Oh yes, look, we help, widowed whales in the Antarctic," and I donate money to that, but I can't find out any information about it. There's no financial reports. When I approach, say, the ACNC to find out more information, their process, they say, is to where to find out more is to visit their website. So think about the Watchtower. If you go to jw.org, there's no mention about their finances, apart from wanting you to donate to their finances. Read their annual reports. Well, there's no annual reports because they don't have to provide them. Or contact the charity and ask questions, like that's going to work, contacting the Watchtower Society for any questions that they're going to answer. So that's the status. So what happened in Australia, let's jump back to 2012 when all these charities registered. There were 836 registered charities in Australia. So that's 836 at the start of December 2012. Just to give, just a comparison snapshot, the Seventh-day Adventists, which are basically Jehovah's Witnesses under another name and a few separate practices, but they all come from William Miller back in the 1840s, that are all essentially the same religion. Christadelphians as well, and Church of Christian Science, all of these ones, Church of the Foursquare Gospel, these are all ones who came from William Miller, just for a bit of background. Might come up in a pub trivia, and then you'll know. But I've completely lost my point. I wander off. Oh yes, there you go. Comparison of those organisations in Australia. Well, let's look at the Seventh-day Adventists. They had slightly more people in their religion, spread around Australia, probably quite the same number of their halls, and yet they have a big hospital in Wahroonga in Sydney, sanitarium food products, part of their religion, and they have all that. And they had like 10 charities in Australia operating a big ongoing concern that they have. Yet by comparison, Jehovah's Witnesses have 836 charities. So that was straight away, it's like, Why are they doing that? So all these congregations have all formed charities, and we include all the assembly halls as well, that they're listed as. I'm just going to use an example of the Sydney Assembly Hall. So that's a charity, a small charity in itself. So it handles revenues of under 250,000. And the example here is I live in Bathurst, New South Wales. It's a couple of hours west from Sydney. It's a registered charity here, and again, it's a small charity, but it's basic, same as the Assembly Hall, and the same as nearly all the other charities. There's only one of those charities in Australia that is large and not classed as basic, and that's the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Australia, the charity, and we'll come to that. So we've got 836. They were registered at the time in December 2012. All of them in 2014 changed to advancing religion, so they changed their status to basic. So not that they had to comply and didn't have to give financials anyway, because they were small, but it was a voluntary, whereas basic means they don't have to, and that they're not subject to any scrutiny by the ACNC. But just of those 836, because I looked up to be current, there's 769 active charities of Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia at the moment. Now, of those 836 in total, 66 have been voluntarily revoked. That might be, congregations have merged. It seemed to be mostly the foreign language congregations who've closed, so they have ceased being a charity. But there was only one that had their charity status forcibly revoked, and that title goes to the Burke Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses in Burke, which is outback New South Wales, and they had their charity revoked by the ACNC through failing to report. So there's obviously still reports that need to go through to ensure that charity is operating correctly. They've failed to comply with that, and so they had forcibly lost their charitable status. So that's a little inkling that the ACNC is capable of revoking a charitable status. So perhaps we might see coming up, if the Watchtower Society ignores that they have to sign on to the redress scheme, that perhaps they may lose their charitable status, or they may have their basic charity status removed from all their charities, which I don't know, we'll see. It's all. You go to the ACNC's website, and it is a little bit esoteric. It's something you can look up and see. But back to in line with, which I guess we'll see, and I dare say I'll hear from that reporter because they're planning to run a story on the Watchtower Society, and that's probably if they don't sign up, or if they do, I'm not sure. But with the redress scheme, what the Commonwealth of Australia, the government wants, is these institutions to basically make amends themselves for the suffering and the abuse that's happened within their institution. And what that is not the money. Look, money doesn't get rid of the memories of things that have happened. Personally, have never suffered abuse, and I can only empathise and feel for those who have. And I think basically, look, anyone who's suffered through anything like that is deserving of help, be it financial, emotional, whatever's there. But the government's setting up this scheme, and basically they're asking the institutions themselves to fund it. And again, let's jump back to the Watchtower Society. That will they be part of a redress scheme? Being part of a redress scheme would be accepting responsibility that their policies, their actions, had a hand in allowing children to be abused, but also to cover it up and to not seek legal reporting, mandatory reporting it's called now. The laws have changed here in Australia. But I can't see them doing it. It's an admission of guilt. And the one thing they never do is admit their guilt. But anyway, so what the government wants them to do is to put their hand in their pocket and help their own, the abuse that happened within their institution. That again was the thought about that. This was what spurred me to think back in 2015, 2016 to have a look at. The thought that came to my mind was, there's no way they're going to pay this. They will, cry poor. They'll say, hey, we've got no money. So I thought, well, start digging. And as I said, the first place I looked at was the ACNC, and you start looking through, type in, Jehovah's Witnesses, and up comes all these congregations that were listed, all these charities, and of course they're all small, there's no financial reports. And I was like, okay. So, type Watchtower Society. So, type in the Watchtower Society, and bingo, up comes status as a large charity that isn't basic. Well, they didn't have that back then, but they did, because they're 2014. But they have to report, because just the operating, the way that charity operates means it needs to financially report, and they do report. Example being, I've got this one here, is the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society 2019 financial report. Now these are all available back to 2014, which shows you what they reported for 2013. So what I figure, and I'll just play it like a scenario, okay? What I think will happen. Let's say, just for the sake of us talking, I was an abuse victim. As I said before, not that I am, but I have empathy for that. In fact, I never heard of one child abuse victim while I was still a Jehovah's Witness. And I grew up and left when I was 40, and had been a servant for 6 or 7 odd years before I left. That's how well they are trained and to hide it. Because there were cases, there certainly were. I've heard of lots of ones since leaving, and never heard a peep about it. That's how hush-hush and they're secretive the elders were, and keeping people quiet about the things that happen. But let's play a scenario. Let's just say, for argument's sake, I was a victim and I'm seeking some compensation and redress. So, not sure exactly how this will play out, but I'd contact the Royal Commission, the redress scheme. That for argument's sake, in Bathurst, say I was abused as a child and nothing happened. The person who did it was moved to another congregation and all that, and it's affected my life. So under the scheme, under the outline of what the government said, I'm entitled to some redress. So I've gone to the Redress Commission. They've appointed a solicitor, or I'm not sure exactly quite the arrangement, but let's just say there's a solicitor. So we head off to Bethel. All right, let's contact Bethel. Knock on the door, get returned. Not that they let you through the gate, but anyway. I'm here for redress for some abuse that happened to me while I was a Jehovah's Witness. And they go, oh, okay. Look, where did it happen? Don't know. They could look up their files, but anyway, happened in Bathurst. Oh, okay. Well, you really need to contact the body of elders in Bathurst because, you know, it was their responsibility and that's where it came. So, all right, off we go. Head off to Kingdom Hall in Raglan, which is Bathurst congregation. Knock on their door. Hey, remember me? Sure they would. And I'm here for some redress. Oh, what do you mean? Well, you know, I was abused here and the government scheme says I'm entitled to compensation, so I'd like to have some compensation. Oh, right. Well, look, we only have, $1,200 in our account because, you know, we're a poor charity. We're small. We don't have any money at all because the money we receive is donated. Yeah, because none of the congregations now are allowed to hold more than $5,000 in their accounts without special approval from the Watchtower. So all the congregations in Australia, all these little charities, were stripped of their financial assets, so they can only hold a few $1,000s to operate pay their bills and whatnot. Now, so the congregation, the elders have said, no, we've got no money. Right. Ground. Well, it's a bit of it is an ugly kingdom. I helped build it back in the 80s. But, well, let's sell it. You know, the average property value in Raglan is $402,000. So, yeah, you can put it up on the market and sell it. Oh, sorry, look, we don't own the Kingdom Hall. We're just tenants. Well, who owns it? Oh, look, we rent it from a property management company. Right. And who's that? Oh, Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, Australasia Limited. Right. Okay. Well, we head off to them, which is Bethel. You've got to go to Bethel to find them because that's where their registered company address is. We'd like to speak to the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, Australasia Limited. Now, it'd be the same guy that we talked to before. He'd just have his cap on as the Watchtower. He'd take that off, put on his cap as the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. Talk to you the same. Right. Well, we're here to seek redress, and this congregation where I was abused is not going along with it, and we'd like to sell their hall. Oh, look, sorry, look, we're just a property management company. We lease that hall out to the Bathurst Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're a tenant. So I don't think under the law we're responsible for what our tenants do within a property that we own, but we lease to them. So I'm sorry, can't really do anything to help you there. That's right. Okay. So we step back. What are we going to do? Let's, all right, we're here at Bethel. Knock on the door again. And out comes the same guy. Oh, pops the cap off, puts back on his Watchtower Bible and Tract Society cap. Right, you're giving us the runaround. So we're here. These small charities have no money. So as the Watchtower Society, as the umbrella charity, we're going to sue you to seek redress. Oh, well, we don't have any money. We're broke. What? How can you be broke? I'll have a look at our financial report. So here we go. my solicitor's geared up. He's got all of this because every year is available. Let's have a look. I've got to put on the seeing eyes. All right. Let's have a look. Statement of comprehensive income. So for last year, $28 million came in. But total expenses, $29,693,000. So, unfortunately, we have a situation where there's more going out than there is coming in. Does that sound familiar? It does. So, they're operating at a $1.5 million deficit. So, we don't have any money. I'm sorry. We've got no money. Right. This is a pretty nice big property that's worth, obviously in the tens of millions of dollars. You're building a nice new movie studio set out the back there. Looks a bit old-fashioned, a bit ancient, but anyway, we can sell that. You could sell this and that'll... Oh no, sorry. We don't actually own it. We're tenants. Right. Well, who owns it? Oh, it's the International Bible Students Association. They own it. Right. Well, who are they? Oh, look, they've been around since 1913. You'll need to talk to them. Boom, door closes. Click on the Google, International Bible Students Association. Oh, it's the same place. It's at Bethel, the address. Opens the door. Whoop, off goes out. On comes the International Bible Students Association cap. Oh, hello again. Oh, look, we're here to, we're interested in getting this property evaluated and sold to provide money for the redress scheme. Oh, well, yes, we do operate this property, but it's actually owned by the International Bible Students Association of Great Britain. So it's actually another country owns it. It's foreign owned, and there's no money. We can't do anything. We're really sorry. Close the door. So where does that leave? Leave victims looking for redress. Is it the government's going to have to put its hand in its pocket and provide compensation on behalf of the Watchtower Society who claims poor? Are they really going to accept it? Well, I don't think so. I think there'll be a lot of questions raised. Now, here we might talk about where do the donations go, and I'll give you some figures of that. Right. Now, I've made little charts just to help me while I'm talking to you, and I'll do a scan of them and probably put them into the comments part of the... It's an IQ test, and I fail every time. I go the wrong way. I'll put them into the comments after I've posted this video up, and you can have a look at them there. I will just those. Right. Sorry about that. I don't believe in video editing. I like to just do it, put it up, and that's it. All right. So in Australia, and this is going off those financial reports from 2014 to 2019, there was $150 million donated to the Watchtower Society. Okay. Now, that $150 million is what, well, you can see that from the financial reports. It states how much money was donated each year. Now, it just says for the money going out. It has the local expenses and whatnot. But there's a sizable amount that they donate overseas. Now, there's two other main charities that operate here in Australia with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, there's four. You've got the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, which is the big, the big kahuna. Its business name is Watchtower Travel. Never got a free travel package when I was as a member, and its trading name is Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's the main charity. Then you've got as we said, the International Bible Students Association, which is just a small charity that sits there as a buffer, I think, between the International Bible Students Association of Great Britain and Australia. That was like not the conduit for donations, because it's a small charity, so its revenue, so the money coming in, is less than 250,000. So it's just there probably to ensure that if Jehovah's Witnesses are cracked down on by the government, that they can't seize the asset, because the asset is International Bible Students Association and it's foreign owned, so it's not Australian. There's another charity, which you've heard this before, Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, but this isn't the Australasia Limited, and it's not a public company. This one is just a charity. Okay, it's a large charity. So that tells you that that large charity is handling revenues of $1 million plus. Right? The other one is the International Bible Students Association Brisbane Ecclesia. So Brisbane is state of Queensland. It's another state in Australia. Now that is a large charity, but again, it's basic, the same as the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a basic listing, so they don't have to provide any financial reports, but it is a large charity, so it is handling revenues of $1 million plus, and in its charitable status, it says it helps overseas communities or charities. So its basic purpose, and it was set up in I don't know if it was originally a company, 1926. So it's been around, like the Watchtower's been around since 1903. The International Bible Students Brisbane Ecclesia was 1926. The International Bible Students Association that kind of operates the Bethel was 1913. So these have all been around a long time. So in no way are they, set up to skip the redress scheme. These are long-standing. Just I think they repurpose and reuse their charities. All right, so the $150 million of donations between that period of 2014 2019 went into the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society charity. So it's reported, the money's there. Now it says, and through those 2013 to 2019 reports about donating overseas, they've sent $99 million, just over $99 million out in aid for charitable works overseas. So it's almost 2/3 of what's donated goes overseas. Which is a lot of money. Now, just looking at this chart, I'm going to try and do an IQ test. I'm wondering if the funnel of money, so down here is the pool of charities in Australia, assembly halls, congregations, whatnot, all donating money. If for some reason, which I don't know, I was the account servant in Hornsby congregation, and when we'd forward money on, would be by check, would be just to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. So that was, we're talking pre 2011. Might have changed, but I kind of got a feeling that the money pool possibly goes through the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses that way, or it does internally come back through in some form, just for the fact that it's a large charity, so it's handling a revenue finances of over $1 million. So that's sort of a hint. But look, that inner workings, I don't know, and it'd be very interesting to find out, and it'll probably will. We probably will find out about it if the Charity Commission takes the Watchtower to court and fines them and whatnot. Who knows? But anyway, $99 million goes overseas. Now that money presumably is, well, it used to be money was earmarked just for the worldwide work, but for the fact now that congregations are not allowed to hold more than $5,000 in their account, and they get probably a shellacking from the CO if they sit high. They'd be probably keeping their balance just to cover what expenses they have. Emergencies now are covered by Bethel. So if you're a congregation and you have an emergency expense, well, you apply to Bethel, and they will, return funds that you'll have to pay back. Right. So the money that used to go, there'd be the worldwide work. I don't know what the procedure is in accounting in the congregations now, but that money would be earmarked for it, and I presume that would head straight overseas. But now that they do that, how their scheme is, the money goes in. So we know that $99 million in that 2013 to 2019 period has gone out. Now I was able to track where some of that money goes, and I only found that because it was just when I got the property, a certificate for the Bethel to see who owned it, and that's where I found the International Bible Students Association owned the property, and I did some checking, and that's where I found when did the property search on the Kingdom Hall in Bathurst that's owned by the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. The Assembly Hall, yep, that's owned by the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. That they own it. Now, if you're looking up things to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, an easy way of tracking who owns what or who controls what is look at the email address, and you'll find anything that the Watchtower Society's got its handle on is jw.org. All these other little charities, all these halls are all just Yahoo or whichever, Big Pond, whatever, just public email addresses, if you like. So they've distanced, that's where you can see they've distanced themselves to make a charity that's like, this is nothing to do with the Watchtower Society. This is just a local, charity. And I think this is all aimed at mitigating what they may have to pay out and mitigating what their responsibility is, that the Watchtower can just go, that's purely that congregation was the issue, and they don't have the finances to fund it, and they don't have the property to support that. So I think that's where they're going out. But when I was doing that research in the past, I found that in the period of 2013 to 2014, well, 2015, those 3 years, that money that left Australia to worldwide work uncannily, right, turned up in England. So in the equivalent of the Charity Commission in England, you can do some searches and get the financials on the International Bible Students Association and look them up, get their finances, and start to do some comparison to see if money turned up. Now, what I was able to do just for that each year for 2013, 2014 was just get an average of the exchange rate between Australia and England for that year. So it's not exact, but it was enough to look at that figure. Okay, 1 year is $8 million Australian was donated overseas, and 57 pence, so it was just under £4 million, and it's uncanny for 3 years that figures happened to turn up in the financial report of the International Bible Students Association. And that the money left Australia as donations for the worldwide work, but the money turned up in England as provision of service facilities. So, if you like, looks like the International Bible Students Association would get paid for the Watchtower using Bethel. But that money that Watchtower here in Australia is reporting is as donations to assist overseas communities or charities. Yet in England it was being reported as provision of service facilities, so it was getting paid for providing service facilities for the Watchtower to operate in Australia. So that happened for 2 years. So 2013, 2014, there was £10.1 million, so 18.4 million Australian, went into that. 2015 was a little different, 3.9 million Australian, which is 1.8 million pounds at the time, went into another charity called Kingdom Hall Trust. And that's basically the same deal as the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, that it's a trust that owns all the properties and Kingdom Halls in England. Actually, I'm not sure. Take that back. They own Bethel, but I'm not sure if they have a similar deal about owning Kingdom Halls in England. And that's the last year. That's the last year that I could find. There's been the next years after that, there's no more of this provision of service facilities. That's disappeared. It mentions about in 2016 some acquisition of property in Australia in a footnote, but it doesn't mention anything more. Doesn't say anything about donations coming, service facilities or anything like that, in either of those charities. So I think the destination for the Australian donations has changed. So since 2016 to 2019, there's $85 million Australian has gone overseas to somewhere. I don't know. I'd love to find out. If any of you know, let me know. I'd like to fill in the gap. But that's just kind of a mystery at the moment. Presumably it'd be to America, no doubt. I'm sure if you could see a web of where the money runs, it probably all runs down to Brooklyn, not Brooklyn, to the Wallkill, to the head office. So where that's going to leave Australians seeking redress, I don't know. Hopefully we'll see soon. We'll know at least in 22 days, the end of the month. Are the Watchtower Society going to be a part of it, or are they going to fight against it? I think they'll probably fight against it. It's not like them to admit guilt, even when they know they are guilty. So anyway, sorry for this long video, but kind of needed to explain how it works and how the Watchtower is going to cry poor and say they have no money, yet their money has been constantly being shipped overseas, and in the last 2 financial years they've run at a deficit. So this is all building up to when they appear before court or before the redress scheme, they will be saying, look, we're a poor charity, we're running at a loss. In fact, we're running a deficit year after year. And the nice thing is, the redress scheme would have been fed information from the Royal Commission, who were very well aware and very well provided with all the information about the Watchtower Society, all their branch manuals, their financial systems, their policies. There was nothing that they really kept hidden. In fact, it's funny, I came across, and look, it's dated now. It's from 2016. It's from the Australasia branch, and it's a letter from the branch to the coordinators committee, and it just made me laugh. So I'm just going to read a bit of it to you. Now, this is the Royal Commission contacting them, said that the request herein is to show the Royal Commission that we have acted on some of the recommendations made during the hearings. We are hopeful that by doing so, this may soften the final report of the commissioners. Well, it didn't. Justice McClellan, in his review, said that the Jehovah's Witnesses were the worst institution that the Royal Commission came across for systematically hiding child abuse. So he said they were the worst. So softening it didn't work, and minimise any likelihood of having representatives of the branch being called back again to a further hearing before the commissioners. Well, the Royal Commission didn't, because there was no point. They got the information that they needed. They had all the background information, and they knew how the Watchtower were going to respond, so there was no point them calling back more. But further down, this is the Watchtower providing the Royal Commission with the Protecting Minors from Abuse form, this S66 document, and their statement about it is, it seems to us that by the branch providing both these documents to the Royal Commission, it will show we have done what is reasonable in the way of satisfying some of the policy matters that comply with both their thinking and ours, where they do not compromise scriptural standards. No doubt it will be much better if the Commission receives this information from the branch rather than from apostate opposers. Well, I think we might have beat them to it on a lot of the things. But notice just the way that make a reasonable response to satisfy, which is reasonable, is minimal. So they have done a minimal response to this. But anyway, we'll see what comes of it. If in my opinion they don't play ball and things progress, well, I will make another video and just let you know what I think, from what I've seen, and I'll see what will come of the News Corp reporter, what she brings up, and yeah, interesting days. But anyway, good to talk to you all again. It's been a long time. Kind of figured I was an ex-JW, but seeing these things sort of, kind of pulls you back in a bit. That's, I'd like to see justice done for all those who have been abused, have suffered because they've been forced to cover it up, and hopefully there is going to be a financial help coming for them. But anyway, good to see you all again, and we'll see. Maybe it won't be too long, and I'll do another video to let you know where this stands at. So bye for now.
We thank you very sweetly for doing it so neatly. You've killed us so completely that we thank you very sweetly.
Let the joyous news be spread, the wicked old witch at last is dead.